Good morning, everybody. Welcome to OLC4O, Term 1B. I'm your instructor, Mike Laverty, and today is January 18th, 2023. Sorry, we didn't have a broadcast yesterday on the 17th. I was at home with looking after a sick boy, but I'm back on the job today, so hopefully everybody's doing well out there, avoiding those winter colds and staying warm. This is class number 30, and we are finishing off Unit 4, Lesson 19. And we're going to look at Assignment 43 today, and we're also going to look at Assignment 42. Assignment 42 is a very long one, so we're going to have a look at Assignment 42 and Assignment 43 today. So we are, of course, in week number 8 of classes in Term 1B, and we're going to spend at least a week preparing for the final exam, culminating activity, I hope. Depends how fast we can get through these last two assignments, Assignments 42 and 43, and then the literacy portfolio. So I'm hoping that we can spend more than a week, but definitely that last week, week number 9, we will cover the final exam, culminating activity, with our last day of class being January 26th. That'll be the last broadcast for OLC4O Term 1B in the 2022-23 school year. So we've wrapped up Units 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sorry, 1, 2, and 3. We're almost done Unit 4. We've done that in a few days, by the end of this week for sure. And then we'll look at that final exam. So it's always got to keep that in mind. You need to do a final exam, or what we call a course culminating activity. So if you're registered in a WASA course to a specific term, like if you've registered for a course in Term 1B, then you need to complete that final exam or that course culminating exam before that term is out. So that's really important. If you're doing this course as an independent learner, then you have until the end of the school year to complete your course activities and then either write a final exam or do a course culminating activity. But in either case, you need to coordinate that with your learning center, with your teacher. We have to make sure that someone is there to just watch over you while you write the final exam. Or if we can't book a final exam because of circumstances in your community, in your life, whatever the case may be, then you'll need to complete that course culminating activity. But you have to give yourself enough time to complete it. You don't want to get that thing the day before the term ends and then send in some rushed work. So in either case, it's worth 20% of your final grade, so it's a big chunk of your final grade. So you really got to devote some time to studying for it and preparing for it. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, then feel free to pause that screen and find ways that you can watch/participate or listen to the course live. As always, I love seeing those views tick up. People are watching the YouTube videos. That's fantastic. Look for me on YouTube, Laverty Wassa. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to pause that screen and find out ways that you can participate. How you can submit work. All of this info is in your study guide, and it can be obtained by contacting myself, somebody at the Wassa office in Sulikout, at your local learning center. So you've got many options, but if you want to talk to me directly, and that's the best case scenario if you've got questions about the course, or if you've got questions about the final exam coming up, that's where you want to reach out to me. Monday through Friday, 9 till 3, Central Standard Time. So by now, you should have definitely read all of Unit 1, 2, and 3, and you should have completed assignments 1 through 39. And as I've mentioned many times before, even if you're an independent learner, this is your timeline. If you're 7 to 8 weeks into the course, that's how far you should be. And if you're registered as an independent learner, you know, you want to be realistic in how many assignments you can take on. But I think part of that assessment you have to ask yourself, how much time do I have to devote to a course? And if you don't have a whole lot of free time, then you shouldn't be loading up on courses. And I personally think you should strive to complete them on that 9 week kind of schedule. You shouldn't stretch these courses out over several months, because it is hard to learn things and not to practice them and then having to go back and read things. It's better to just keep those concepts and ideas fresh in your mind. So, but this is a general guideline of where you should be, and you should make a plan for completing assignments 39 and beyond, which is that's Unit 4. All right, so we'll do our images and words of the day. We'll look at today's headline, and then we'll look at assignment 42, and then we'll finish off 42. We'll look at 43 and then finish off 42, which we started on Monday. So our learning goals are to review the writing process to help compose an information paragraph. That's assignment 42. And we're also going to review the writing process to create an outline for your longest writing assignment of this course. So most of your writing assignments have been a paragraph or 2 paragraphs. This one is 4 paragraphs, so it's a short essay, and it is the longest writing you'll do in this course. So it's very important to do an outline for that. So you will know you have been successful if you can write an information paragraph that is supported by your research into a potential career path. If you can create an outline for your opinion paragraph that reflects upon all of your work in this course. So that's what you're doing with that opinion paragraph, and more on that in a sec. So here's our images of the day. I pulled this off of Google. So we had this artist, Christina Rolander, and she's a visual artist. So I'm not sure if she's just simply a photographer, or if the kind of the art you see in the background, if that's like what she designed. I didn't really delve into her website that deeply, but the important thing is that it's a portfolio. And the last big assignment you do in this course is a portfolio. And the word portfolio, it comes from the art world, I think originally. A portfolio is like, it's literally a briefcase that an artist carries around with them. And then when they're trying to get a job or they're trying to impress people for whatever reason, they open up that portfolio and they show it to people. Now, in the modern age, 2022, and of course we've had websites for a long time, but your portfolio is often digital. It's going to be featured on a website. And so artists have portfolios, and so do writers, right? So a writer has a portfolio, and it's a way to just show off and just say, like, look, this is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I can do for you. And really, if you're looking to hire a visual artist, like let's say you designed a new building and you want to hire someone to paint a mural on the side of it, you could interview that person, and that person could write you an essay to describe how good of an artist they are. But probably more importantly, you just want to see their work. Should I hire this person to paint my building? Well, let's have a look at what they can do. And it's not just about being a good artist. It's about being the right artist for that building. And same with being a writer, right? You got to do the right kind of writing for the right job. So with that in mind, we've got some words up on the screen here. The Anishinaabe-Moan word is asiginan, which is a verb, which means to gather it up, to collect it. We have, of course, the portfolio, an edited collection of an artist's or writer's best work. So the key word there is edited, right? So it's not the writer's collected works. It's not everything they've ever done. It's an edited collection. So the writer or the artist has made a a deliberate choice. They've given some thought to it, right? And they've put together this work, and they've collected it and displayed it, and so it's used to show employers their versatility by showing different samples of current work, right? So, and that's really important too. It's that versatility, right? So, with your literacy portfolio, you'll be putting together examples of work that will show your versatility as a writer, your ability to write a news report, an opinion paragraph, visual elements, right? So writers have to use many tools, so your portfolio shows off all that you can do. Some related words in the Anishinaabe-Moan language. We've got Anda Wawizo, which is she or he goes to look for berries to pick, right? So we're just playing on that concept of going out and selecting something. We've got Asiginamo, which is to pick them up, gather, collect. And we have Anabandon, which is a verb which means to select and pick it by sight. So just by looking at something. So different verbs that are all related to the concept of picking something and being selective. 3 English words. We have an anthology. So an anthology is a book or another collection of selected writings by various authors, usually in the same literary form, so of the same period. When they say period, they mean the same time or the same subject. If you take ENG3E from WASA, then we have an anthology, and that anthology collects stories and poems that are supposed to teach students about just the act of writing itself. A compendium is a brief treatment or account of a subject, especially an extensive subject, a concise treatise. So it's, again, it's a summary. And you've written lots of summaries in this course already. And the summary is also, a summary also requires you to pick and to be selective and to curate, right? So curate's one of those words that I love. It's involved in like museums and art galleries. So oftentimes when you go to a museum, you're not seeing everything they have. You're just seeing a little selection of what they have, and someone has making a decision to just put on certain things, right? So you don't see it all, but you've seen like a very select offerings of what's available. And compile is a verb which means to put together documents, selections, or other materials in one book or work. So when you create your portfolio, you are compiling. And if any of you have done any coding work, you'll know that when you compile your code, that's when you run it. And that's when the computer takes everything you've written and it runs the code. And it either works or it doesn't. All right, here is today's article. Another one from my favorite newspaper, the Globe and Mail. And the headline reads, there's our headline. Early literacy assessment in Toronto shows large gap based on family income. We've got our byline. Remember, the byline is who wrote it. And we got our caption. So students arrive at Hunters Glen Junior Public School, part of the Toronto District School Board in Scarborough, Ontario, on September 15th, 2020. So there's our headline based on the parts of speech. So we've got a noun, and this is the subject of the sentence. This is what this whole headline and the whole article is going to be about. An assessment was done, but it's not just any assessment. It's an early literacy assessment, right? So early literacy is typically what we talk about students in, say, like kindergarten, and mostly kindergarten, and I think maybe a little bit of the primary grades. But so it's an assessment of how well kindergarten and very young students are at reading, and how far they are and not necessarily reading, but literacy skills, right? Because many students in kindergarten can't fully read yet, but they do have extensive literacy skills. They know tens of thousands of words because they've heard them. They just haven't learned the skills to write them. So it's an assessment that's in a preposition, a specific place in Toronto, proper noun, capital T. And what the assessment does is it shows, that's the action, right? And what does it show? It shows a gap, but not just any gap. It's a large gap. So we have the adjective noun pair that always go together. Based on, base is a verb, on's a preposition. It's based on income, but not just the income of one person. It's based on family income. Which, of course, is not too surprising when you think, literacy skills and reading skills are really, especially in young students who haven't had that much schooling experience. The students that show higher literacy skills are definitely the ones coming from families that have lots of supports in place. And when you're living in poverty and you don't have a lot of money, it's hard to worry about the higher things in life and the more important things in life when you're having a hard time paying the bills. So that's not a surprise, right? So that's a breakdown of the article. We'll have a look at the first three paragraphs. So we've got a new Toronto District School Board report shows a wide gap in literacy skills among some of its youngest learners from low-income families. There's that ITS. Remember that's something belongs to it. That's a pronoun, and that's the Toronto School Board, right? So instead of saying the Toronto District School Board, we simply say it. So it's we haven't reviewed this in a while, but it's always good to do it. So the pronoun is it, and it refers back to the noun, the Toronto District School Board. Highlighting a need to focus supports after more than 2 years of pandemic-related school disruption. So there's a good use of a hyphen, which is often used to combine two concepts together that are closely related. We have additional info contained with commas. Trustees will review the early literacy report, which provides a snapshot of how children fared as schooling shifted between in-person and online at a committee meeting on Wednesday. So we've got our first comma right here, and we got our second comma right here. And I've used brackets to demonstrate that the commas could easily be replaced by brackets. And brackets, commas, dashes, they all perform the same function. So you can have a dash, brackets, or commas. And what they do is they contain additional information. So if we just ignore everything in the middle here, and we read that sentence, trustees will review the early literacy report at a committee meeting on Wednesday. That's the most important information, and then the stuff in the middle, it's not that it's more important. It's just it's less important than the fact that the committee meets on Wednesday. But just important to pay attention to how writers do that. It's a very important tool as a writer to include additional information about something in a sentence. So here we got an introductory dependent clause. Although many children adapted to the changes, comma, some studies have suggested the pandemic left others behind. Comma used to list related items and ideas. So educators, parents, I talked about this before. I myself prefer the Oxford comma, or I put a comma before the second last item in a list. This author clearly does not. So it's educators, parents, and policymakers. That's the three items about the social, developmental, and academic skills. So I would put the comma there. And so it gets confusing sometimes because there are rules when we're writing the English language that have to be followed. I often mention the punctuation. You can't have a sentence without punctuation. There's no choice there as a writer, but sometimes as a writer you have a style choice, and certain publications will have what's called an in-house style. And the Globe and Mail is a huge publication, guaranteed they have an in-house style. And when you want to write for the Globe and Mail, you have to follow that style or have an editor correct you, right? So, but most publications, most websites, some companies, if they're bigger companies, and they write a lot of public relations stuff and they communicate with the public, they have a certain set of rules for how they do that. And it's basically, it's just for consistency, right? That's why you do that, right? So consistency is really important when you are a communicator, whether you communicate through music or art or writing. It's good to be consistent and sort of, pick a design, pick a strategy, and stick to it, for that particular work. So that's kind of really important, and then you kind of keep that consistency, and then it sort of helps your reader follow along with what you're doing. All right, so we're going to go back and we're going to look at assignment 42. So thinking back to assignment 42, there's 3 parts to it. There's part A, part B, and part C. We're going to talk about part C, but I just want to remind you that part A, that was part A was answering questions. We had an article by our man Rob Taylor, right? So we answered questions about the article. And then in part B, you were thinking about a career path, right? This was a career / let's put that up there, / scholarships, right? So this is arguably the most important planning that you're going to do in your life, among the most important kind of planning, right? So planning to have a family or buying a home, really big decisions. But, deciding on a career you want to do, that's a really big decision. And, if you want to work in a particular field, if you want to get a job that pays more than your current job or makes you happier, for example, right? There's been lots of talk about that. Like during the pandemic, you saw like unprecedented levels of people quitting jobs and starting new jobs, and they've done lots of studies on jobs, and they interview people, and most people assume that if you asked a person what's your top 3 requirements for a job, you would think that making a lot of money and being important would like be at the top of the list. But when they do these studies, people really talk about like happiness and feeling like they're part of a team and feeling like they matter, and they're doing something important that makes you happy is like it tends to just top all of these lists, right? So I think a lot of people were sort of like, you know what, I could make more money in this job, but I'm going to be miserable when I come home, and I might have more money, but I'm going to be I'm not going to be a happy person. So it's important to do some research and to figure out, what kind of career is gonna make you happy. And I know that life isn't just about happiness. You have to pay the bills. You have to take care of your priorities. But at the end of the day, you have to find some happiness in your job. And I think that's something that we should all strive for, is to find something that we can do every day that pays the bills, but hopefully makes us happy, or at the very least makes us feel like we're doing something, doing something important that's making a difference in the world, right? So you're writing one paragraph, and that paragraph it's talking about your research. You have to use 4 supporting details from that support your topic sentence. Cite at least 2 sources of information. Write a conclusion for your information paragraph, and then do, of course, any necessary revising or editing before preparing your final version of the paragraph. And then you use the checklist in Rubric below to guide your writing, okay? So this rubric comes over here. But before we do that, I just want to spend a few minutes going over that research process and then maybe show you a couple of examples. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up, just one second, I'm going to pull up my browser for you. Going to start my share, and there we go. You should, you should now see my Google screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at something in my backyard, SiouxLookoutJobs.com. So Sioux Lookout, if you type in SiouxLookoutJobs.com, it'll bring you to the Sue Hudson Employment Services website. And they've organized their website by job seekers, employers, services, resources, contact. What I like to do is scroll down to the left over here and go to current jobs. And then we can get a list of some jobs that are available to people, right? So we've got a custodian, an environmental health officer, we've got a civil technologist intern, not quite sure what that is, general IES field officer, right? Emergency medical responders, okay, interesting, okay, paramedics, so yeah, so maybe we could look at that, right? So my father's a paramedic, so is my older brother, so that's something I know about. But emergency medical responders, let's have a look at that one, right? So if we click on it, we've got our job posting. So the title is an emergency medical responder. You report to the health emergency coordinator. You would be employed by the Independent First Nations Alliance. So again, I could right click on this website. I could either print or save as. I like to do print. And I can save it as a PDF, and then if I do that, it'll save it as a 2-page PDF, and I can use that as part of my research. So for part B, and then but I can also cite this when I write my part C, my paragraph, right? So let's read more. The Independent First Nations Alliance is looking to hire emergency medical responders for the Integrated Emergency Services Department and will be reporting to the Health Emergencies Coordinator. All right, so when we're talking about bursaries and scholarships, we're talking about education. So ability to work under stressful situations and exercise sound judgment in all emergency care situations, ability to identify. All right, requirements. That's what I'm looking for. Successful completion of an emergency care paramedicine program recognized by the Ministry of Health in the province of Ontario. Okay, so that's what you need. You need that certification. So emergency care paramedicine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that, right? So I'm just going to highlight it. I right click on it. I copy it. I'm going to go in my Google search. I'm going to paste that in there. Let's see. Paramedic. OntarioColleges.ca. Okay, let's do that. All right, so we got OntarioColleges.ca. Many Ontario colleges offer programs in the field of paramedics. Okay, very good. Average starting salary of $73,000. Not too bad, right? So that's a specialty program, but hey, you could start around 50 grand a year, which is not too bad either. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. We got some campuses, right? We got Sudbury does it. We've got, let's see, a lot of Sudbury. I've got Ottawa. Anything closer to home? It's kind of, oh, there we go, Thunder Bay. All right, so look at that. So advanced care paramedic, paramedic primary care. Let's look at that one. So that's a 2-year academic program. It's going to periods of 8 months. program code, diploma. It's a post-secondary program. So of course, post-secondary. When you get your high school diploma, you're doing your secondary. If you complete all of your courses, you will receive an Ontario Secondary School diploma, and then post-secondary, because the word post means after. So after secondary, that's why this is a post-secondary program. So you could apply to this program in September 23rd and attend it at the Thunder Bay campus, if that's a career path you wanted to do. If you wanted to be, if you want to be an emergency care paramedic with IFNA, or if you want to be a paramedic. So if I want to be a paramedic with IFNA, then I need, same thing. I need an emergency care paramedicine program. So I have to get that certification, right? So a primary care paramedic in the province of Ontario. So I need to get that. You need a lot of requirements, right? You need the special driver's license. You need a valid and current BLS certification. I don't even know what that means. And that's why you gotta do a lot of research, right? Like if this is a job you want to do, and if you think you might be able to be a paramedic, and you don't know what BLS means, and you don't know what AEMCA, you better find out, right? So, so let's find out what that means. It's kind of fun. I love doing stuff like this. So, what does that stand for? That is basic life support. Okay, so basic life support certification, right? So, so that's a course you can get from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, right? So that's I guess that's like sort of like first aid, but like a little bit more advanced, right? Yeah, it teaches you CPR and AED skills, right? So that's, yeah. Okay, so there we go. So we've got a career path in mind. We want to be a paramedic, and we know that IFNA, the Independent First Nations Alliance, is looking for paramedics, and they're looking for them right now. But I guarantee you they'll be looking for them in the future, right? So you could work in Sioux Lookout or Thunder Bay as part of this program. So we got a career path. We know what we have to do to attend that. If we want to achieve that career, we have to get some certification. And to get the certification, we have to attend a college program. And then we see that Confederation College offers it, so that's great. And then we got to look for some scholarships, right? So scholarships, paramedicine. I'm going to look up Canada. Primary care, look at that. So scholarshipscanada.com has got so that's the beauty, and that's why we have websites like scholarshipscanada.com. You always want to rely upon research that other people have done to save you time. And that's why this website is really important, right? So look at that. We've got a primary care paramedic bursary right there. So it's a provided by St. Lawrence College. We only got one there, so let's go back and let's look at scholarships and bursaries, St. John Ambulance Canada. Okay. Let's see here. Well, we got one. That's the St. John Ambulance, so that they would have application forms are available after January 1st of each year. All applications. So I'm not sure where the application form is, but we could contact them to get it if we need to get it, right? So, and let's just look at one more here. Okay, we got diversity in paramedicine. Got the Paramedic Association of Canada. Yeah, just for time's sake, we'll look at one more, and then I'll give you a brief outline of how you can approach this process. So, just wait for that to load up. Come on, here we go. But if you think back to Rob Taylor's article, he recommends that you look at like associations and organizations that are involved in paramedicine, So if you just Google a search, if you just do a Google search for that information, I really want to see what this one says. They're kind of spinning on me. It's not going to work. Okay. But yeah, I mean, really, like a Google search will bring up lots of bursaries you could do if you wanted to be a paramedic, and if that's a route you choose, then there are options available to you. All right, so I'm going to stop that share, and just for the sake of time, we're going to go back into our lesson here. So you got to write an information paragraph, and so you got to do the following. So you need a topic sentence that begins your paragraph. Include at least 4 supporting details that support your topic sentence. Cite at least 2 sources of information, right? So you have to do all these things, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to make an outline to make that happen. So we're writing an information paragraph. And then what I'm going to do right here in the next 10 minutes or so is we'll look at sometimes I call this like a sentence planner or an outline. And I find this to be a very useful tool as a writer, especially when I'm outlining, and maybe even more importantly when I'm having a hard time getting started. And by now, you know, if you've listened to all my lectures, you've heard me say this a million times. It's really hard to just start typing. Even if you've been writing for a long time and you're really good at it and you've got lots of experience doing it, you find that pre-planning is really, really useful. When I was in university, I was in a writing course, and I would often go for long walks with my wife. So her and I would like walk to a coffee shop in downtown Windsor, and she'd be writing stuff for her courses, I'd be writing stuff for my courses, and we would just talk back and forth. And even though she didn't know a lot about what I was writing about, and I certainly didn't know what she was researching because she was going for law, but she would be like, "Oh, I'm stuck on this. I don't know where to go," and then we would just talk and riff and go back and forth. And then that night, I would sit down at my laptop, and the ideas would just flow out of me, right? And I would have so much to say, and I wouldn't feel stuck anymore. And I've often had that experience where, like, I'm working on a paper, and if it's not due the next day, and I can afford to just leave it to the next day, I always find that when I wake up in the morning, it's like my brain has been working on it, right? So, and that's what that planning process does. You'd be surprised what your brain's doing when you're not actually doing the thing you're invested in, right? Your brain's always putting things together. So I'm going to do a sentence planner. And maybe just look at my first 3 sentences, right? So my first sentence, that's going to be my topic sentence. So, and that can be, and I'm, this is going to be about, this is just point form, right? So it's going to be about not being, it's about becoming, right? Becoming a paramedic, becoming a paramedic in Ontario, and yeah, I'll just separate that. And applying for scholarships to help get there. And this is where it's really useful, right? When you when you write in point form, you don't have to spell things correctly. You don't have to use grammar. You don't have to write perfect sentences. You can write really sloppy. It's just about getting ideas on the page, and then you mold those ideas into something better later. And I've often talked about being a musician or being an artist. You know, a lot of artists will have sketchbooks, and their sketchbooks are full of really rough diagrams that don't really go anywhere, and like they try to draw something 10 different ways, and then they just abandon that completely, and they go in a different direction, and then maybe like 5 pages later they go back to that original idea and be like, oh, I could use that. That's kind of cool. Um, Musicians do this all the time, or they'll lay down demo tracks, or they'll just jam. They'll just simply play together for 10 minutes and then go back and listen to it and just kind of be like, oh, that's really cool. That we could really develop that into a song idea. But if they were just to like sit there and like try to write a song right off the bat, it'd be really hard to do. But you just sort of riff and just make stuff up. So my first sentence will be about becoming a paramedic, and how to get there. And then maybe I could uh, list some potential jobs. And then when I list those jobs, I'm going to say who the employer is and where the job is. My third sentence is going to be about programs. These are academic programs that you can take. Confederation College, right? That was one that came up as an example, right? So my topic sentence, listing some potential jobs, listing some programs, and then of course I need my fourth sentence is going to be about scholarships. Maybe I'll just list two of the best I can find. And then I might have a 5 or a 6, but my concluding paragraph is going to be about something about like charting a path. And then maybe even a sentence about, you know, like why doing this is a rewarding career path. And it might make more sense to talk about that aspect earlier, right? So like becoming a paramedic, how to apply for scholarships. Maybe it might make more sense to write about why you'd become a paramedic and why it's important to be one, and then talk about where you could work, and then, or I mean, you could take a different approach, right? Like, how do you want to write this thing? Do you want to write it like look for the scholarship, apply for the program, then apply for the job? But yeah, so the order in which you give that information is important, and that's going to be up to you as the writer of the article. You have a pretty extensive checklist in Unit 4. Like if you look at your unit material, you've got a very extensive checklist. So I have read my sources carefully, right? So what are your sources? That's an important question, right? So your sources are the Rob Taylor article, and they're also your own research. Have I read them carefully? Have I paid attention? And have I selected and chosen the most useful information in those sources? Planning. Have I taken notes on at least 4 key points that can be grouped together? Have I used a unifying main idea about one specific aspect of my topic? So I think I've done that with my planning. My unifying main idea. And again, specific, right? Always be specific, right? You know, I think if you want to go into the health field, that's way too broad of a field to go into. There's dentistry, there is nursing, there's rehab, there's radiology. There's way too many things to talk about, but be specific, talk about one career path and how you're going to get there. That's what I did. So writing, I have written my paragraph in complete sentences. That's an easy one, right? I have written a topic sentence that clearly states my main idea about the specific aspect of my topic. So when I read the first sentence of your article, I should know what career path you're talking about, what you're researching. Don't bury the lead, right? I have written at least 4 supporting details in the body of my paragraph. So you can have more than one detail in a paragraph, right? So just keep that in mind. So I have placed my supporting details in the best order. So that's what we just talked about, right? So when you write an information paragraph, you're throwing a lot of information at your reader. And the order they get that information is really important. So just think about it, rearrange it. Sometimes when I write, I like to really separate my sentences out and have 2 lines between them. Like I when I'm writing on a word processor, like using Word, for example. And then that way I can just rearrange the sentences, cut and paste them as I go along, and then just see how they fit into each other. I have summarized my main idea in my concluding sentence. I have organized my ideas clearly to help my reader follow and understand my information paragraph. I have used linking words to connect my ideas. Okay, so linking words are really important, right? So linking words, if we think back to our how-to article, these can be words like first, then, after, while, and then they link all the ideas in your sentence together, and they connect your ideas, right? So, and they also help place the reader, and then they place the reader in your article. And just think, even if you're talking about something that's might seem like kind of dry or boring subject matter, applying for a job is not as exciting as a ghost story or like a spy novel or like a thriller, but you're still telling a story, right? All good writing is on some basic level is telling a story, right? And so, and like for example, like my father or my brother, they could write a story about how they became paramedics and the story that they did to achieve that. But you could write this is how you could do it, right? So you're telling the story of how somebody could become a paramedic, right? If somebody wants to work as a emergency responder or a paramedic for the Independent First Nations Alliance, this is how they do it. First they do that, then they do that. If they want to save some money, they should apply for a bursary. To apply for the bursary, they should, on and on and on. Objectively presented my facts and information. So objectively just means, without bias, just give them the facts. It's an information paragraph. You're not writing your opinion, right? It's not like you're trying to persuade the reader. You're giving information. Conveyed an effective tone through word choice and level of language. That one is important, right? So an effective tone is important. So it should be a more or less a serious tone. You're not joking around. You're not, and again, you're not giving your opinion on things. So it's very, it should be neutral in a sense. It should be serious. You might have a little fun with it. Thinking back to Rob Taylor's article, and let's just think about what's the tone of Rob Taylor's article. I would say that it's informative, it's serious. but he also has fun with it. It's personal, right? So, but that's appropriate to his story because he's telling his story about attending university and not knowing what he was doing and missing out on all these bursaries and scholarships. So it's like a little mini biography. It's a story of his life. So if you're just simply writing about a potential career path, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to bring your personal ideas into it. So you want to kind of keep it neutral and just information based. And your word choice and level of language need to be consistent with that. I have used the stages of the writing process to revise my work, right? And then remember revising is big picture, right? Revising is organization, titles, how we structure the article, the order in which we write our sentences and give them to our reader. So revision is overall organization. I have created an information paragraph that will appeal to my audience. And who's your audience? So your audience should really be anybody who wants that job. Anybody who wants that job and, wants to save money. And so in a sense, you're playing a similar role that Rob Taylor did, right? It's like, I've done my research on this subject, so I'm here to save you some time. And think about it that way. So think about your writing as having like a real purpose. And a lot of information on the internet, it follows this pattern, right? It's like, I've done all this research, I've figured out how to do this thing. Here it is. Here's how you can do that thing. And that's a way of making yourself useful, right? And a lot of content on YouTube, for example, is very driven by people trying to learn how to do something, right? They want to do something, they don't know how to do it, they go on YouTube. And the YouTube videos that get clicked on and the YouTube videos that get shared and the YouTube videos that get the thumbs up are the ones that actually do the thing they're supposed to do. The really poorly produced ones get ignored, they get downvoted, they get pushed to the bottom. But the ones that meet their purpose, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to meet your purpose. And I would say your purpose is to be useful, right? Your purpose is to help people, right? That's what you're doing. You're charting a path for somebody else to take. I have checked my grammar, spelling, and punctuation. I've had a peer edit my work. That's a really good example. So a peer could be somebody in the class. So a lot of writing courses where, unfortunately, for this course, we're not in the same room together. But a lot of English courses employ a tactic or a strategy called peer editing. I love to do this, where people will swap papers. So here's mine, here's yours. I'm going to mark yours up, you're going to mark mine up. Then we're going to swap papers back, and then we're going to make our works better. So have somebody else edit your work, and then go back to it, and then make decisions and be like, okay, I like that one, I don't like that suggestion. And when people edit your work, it's important to give them feedback on what you're looking for, right? Do you just want them to check for grammar and spelling and punctuation, like just really low level, well, not low level, but you know what I mean, like just very surface level details? Or do you want them to think about the big picture? Like, do you think this actually works? Would this help somebody? So when you ask someone to edit your work, you're usually doing one or both of those things. And in producing, I've chosen an appropriate title, and I have neatly, clearly written and typed my final copy. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So did not have enough time. Assignment 42 is a big one. But tomorrow we'll meet again, and we will finish off, we'll tackle assignment 43, which is also a big one. So it'll take at least one class to do that. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.